My big New Year's resolution in 2020, 2 years ago now, was to normalize my relationship with food. Perfect timing because just 2 months into the resolution, I went to the store and all my favorite foods were sold out, and we had to focus on things and not be distracted by food cravings. My New Year's resolution in 2021, my big one at least, was to get over my fear of loud environments. I made the resolution because I knew reopenings were around the corner and they were happening slowly, and I got to practice one step at a time as opposed to dive in to a really loud party, which we weren't allowed to do at the time. And so that was good. And perfect timing for both of those resolutions. I have some more challenges I'd like to work on in 2022. Number one, I still have a long ways to go with eating challenges. I don't have out of control food cravings anymore, but I have a hard time juggling eating without losing my good sense of control. See, I often eat once a day or even once every day and a half nowadays because I have a hard time stopping once I start eating. It's almost like the floodgates had opened once I start. I'm getting better at it. Where it really comes to bite me is that I start eating and I can't seem to continue for whatever reason, right? So ever since the pandemic, obviously, our work has been appended by it, right? Last year, a lot of us lost our jobs, and a lot of us had to apply for 100 jobs, right? So I would be in the middle of a meal, and the phone would ring from one of the jobs that I applied to. And you got to remember, a year ago today, you couldn't say, let me call you back in half an hour. That job's going to disappear if you do that, right? Today, it might be okay. Even still, you don't want to take a chance with doing that. So I would answer the phone, and I would be edgier and edgier as I spoke. I probably lost a number of job opportunities as a result of that. Now, that's a symptom also of our very fast-paced life, right? In an ideal world, this is my lunchtime. Why don't we talk at 1 p.m., right? In an ideal world, the job shouldn't evaporate if you say that. But unfortunately, we also don't live in the ideal world, which means that we have to have a little bit better control of our eating faculties rather than just, it's lunchtime, I can't talk right now, right? So I hope to work on that. Lately, I've been doing a little bit better. I find that mentally, if I'm eating and the phone rings, to kind of change the channel in my head, right? And, okay, I see something better on the television. We'll come back to the Food Network later. Right now, there's this Job Network. There's a great show on there right now, right? I've learned to kind of mentally change the channel in my head. Now, speaking of job interviews, one thing that really killed me this past month was that I have a hard time when there's a silent moment in a conversation, right? The interviewer is rapid firing questions at me and then going silent, and I want to fill that in. And sometimes in the rush to fill in the silence, I say something suboptimal, right? If not outright stupid, something suboptimal. And I'm practicing right now. I have learned that it is okay in a conversation for there to be 3 to 5 seconds of silence. Notice how I'm practicing that right now, right? And on the other extreme of silence, I have a hard time tuning out noise. So I live with my landlord as well as one other roommate. My landlord has 2 habits that sometimes get on my nerves. He's a little bit of a compulsive hoarder. We've been talking about it, and he wants to correct that habit, which gives me a nice warm fuzzy feeling. I mean, even if it doesn't happen overnight, the fact that he realizes he has a problem and we can actually talk it through gave me a good feeling. I love to be able to make changes for the positive, right? I have allergies, and his hoarding of stuff creates a lot of dust. And even if I'm getting sick from it, the fact that I'm educating him makes me feel good. His other problem is that he's extremely talkative. One of the reasons I wanted to go on a fast this weekend was because every time I used the kitchen, I got to put up with his commenting on my food choices, his politics talks, and all that. And lately, when I go to the kitchen, I've been putting on headphones just so I can ignore it. And it's awkward. You see him motioning and talking and his lips moving, and you know that if you take off those headphones, it's going to go down a rabbit hole of 30 minutes to the point where you accidentally burn your food. I mean, I learned the hard way. I can't even lift my headphones 1 inch, or else it's going to go down that rabbit hole. Now, I need to be better at tuning out stuff, right? Maybe I should be able to go to the kitchen, cook some food, and let him ramble about politics and how he thinks my food choices are crazy, and let him ramble and handle my own stuff in parallel with that rather than get dissolved into it, right? I need to learn how to deal with that. I need to learn to know, to be better at judging where I stand with things, right? So getting back to the career situation, a lot of times I find that I don't speak out for myself at the workplace because I'm scared, and I don't realize that I have a little bit more leverage than I realize I have. So earlier this winter, my car had broken down, and I probably could have taken a couple days off, but instead I went to get a rental car, and then I went to, I was living out of an Airbnb in Ellensburg because at the time I hadn't gotten the exemption from the vaccines and all that, and so that was the only place I could find, and just a huge mess. When I could have asked my work, can I have like half a week to take care of some personal business? I didn't realize where I stood. I actually had pretty good standing. I mean, a lot of my coworkers were quitting en masse and all that. And that one was a little bit more obvious. At the same time, I wanted to, because I personally have problems. I have ADHD, to be exact. And sometimes I accidentally mess up. And I like to get some good credit in ahead of messing up. Right? Maybe next month I'll do something really embarrassing at work. And I'd like to be able to say, you know, I came in here all those times when you couldn't find anybody else. And hopefully that will be a little bit of insurance against that, right? Same thing with my landlord situation, right? I helped clean up the house even though it was his mess, because I know sooner or later I'm going to make a mistake. Accidentally damage something, or, you know, get so involved in his discussion that I accidentally burn the food and stink up the house. Right? Or I lived in another house at one point where I accidentally damaged some property, car accident kind of stuff, damaged the property around the house, ran over ran over the lawn in the house, right? I want to be able to make up for that in advance of something silly like that happening. Now, in a previous video, I talked about wanting to move out to the Rockies because I got accepted for who I was as a single guy. But I realized that's kind of a mistake. I need to speak up for myself. The people in Wallace already know how to be happily single, how to accept people for being happily single. It's the people in Seattle who need to be educated. So that was a mistake. I take that back, and I'll probably stay in Seattle during the winter time. And continue my education and feel good as I'm educating people, even if I'm lonely about it, to find comfort in the fact that I'm speaking up about it. Now, in the long term, I want to meet somebody who I can be happily single along with, right? So I'm not very intimate, but I haven't ruled out the idea that one day I'll get married. But if I do, it's going to be to marry somebody so that both of us can be happily single but together, right? It could be of either gender, by the way. I hope to be more comfortable taking time away from my electronics. I kind of took a step in that direction when I went to Wallace last weekend, right? The internet connection in my Airbnb was not all that great, and I learned how to sleep without a YouTube video playing in the background. That was a new one for me. I learned how to go out and enjoy the Rockies without having to sit in front of the computer every day, right? All right. So what do we talk about? The eating challenges, the learning to be comfortable with loud noises and with silence, right? Both of them I need to be comfortable with because you don't get to always dial the volume of the outside world. Knowing where I stand with various things and when I should speak up and when I should stay quiet. Continue to fight for singles equality, right? And meet somebody who's in my same boat who I can be happily single together with, right? I know that's an odd one. And to learn to enjoy life outside of the computer screen.